The DPRK has called the American strikes on Syria reckless and said they justified Pyongyang's need for nuclear weapons. In a statement broadcast on state television, a foreign ministry official said the country's, quote, tremendous military muscle with a nuclear force as its pivot will foil any aggression by the U.S. The comments come just one day after an American Navy strike group, warships that were stationed near Singapore, began sailing towards the Korean Peninsula. The head of the U.S. Pacific Command Fleet said it was in direct response to, quote, provocations by the DPRK, a sentiment echoed on Sunday by U.S. President Donald Trump's national security advisor.
The president has asked us to be prepared to give him a full range of options to remove that threat to the American people and to our allies and partners in the region.
Last week, Pyongyang launched a ballistic missile into the East Sea. The DPRK said that was in response to the three-way military drills being held in the area between the U.S., Japan, and the Republic of Korea. But it was also timed ahead of a summit between Trump and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping in Florida. Over the weekend, Trump's Secretary of State Rex Tillerson claimed his take from the meeting was that China was starting to get behind American military action against the DPRK.
We're hopeful is that we can work together with the Chinese to change the conditions in the minds of the DPRK leadership, and then at that point, perhaps discussions may be useful. But I think there's a shared view and no disagreement as to how dangerous the situation has become. And I think even China is beginning to recognize that this presents a threat to even to China's interest as well.
During their meeting, President Trump told President Xi Jinping that the U.S. would be ready to act unilaterally against the DPRK if China didn't do more. China shares a land border with the North. Any military action there could trigger a stream of people trying to flee over that border. China has repeatedly asked the U.S. to be cool-headed when it comes to the DPRK. Beijing has long maintained that diplomacy through, for example, the international six-party talks was the best way to resolve the nuclear issue on the Korean Peninsula. And in general, it warns against any increased U.S. military presence in its backyard. Roee, Ruttenberg, CGTN in Washington.